Well, hey there, everybody. My name is Carpo, or Josh if you prefer, was my birth name. This video I'm going to be talking a little bit about myself, but before you think that it's just some arrogant, pretentious version of me explaining why I'm the greatest, it's the exact opposite. It's actually going to open up some of my own weaknesses, my own insecurities, and as well, the point is not to talk about myself, but to rather see myself in others or others in myself, and to try to share the experiences that I've learned in my life with other people for what it's worth. Now, before I go any further, I already know you're distracted probably by this thing over my shoulder here. What is that? Maybe you didn't even notice it. It's kind of a point that I wanted to make, that each person is focused on different aspects of what we're constantly immersed in. This is nothing more than a turntable with a little skeleton meditating on it. But I was thinking about this earlier, how everyone interprets these things differently. Intentions, the meaning behind a video or behind sharing an idea, and the rationale and intent of doing it. I've had people ask me questions like, why do you have a YouTube channel? Or, over all these 10 years that I've been making these videos, which to me is kind of mind-boggling, honestly. I mean, that's been a major part of my life since I was 34 years old, and now I'm 44, almost 45, and I've learned so much in this time. Before my channel, but since as well. So many of these things that I really have found beneficial, and I would like to help people with advice on those issues. But this is where I get to the point here. Now, my whole channel has been based around ambivalence. I mean, I make claims, of course, and I do have my own theories, values, morals, and beliefs, but I don't generally talk much about, as far as along the lines of pushing my thoughts on others as being the only way to think. I tend to try to leave an open-ended question, like, well, if that works for you or if that works for me. And what I've learned, and this is kind of goes counterintuitive to what I would think, but people do not like ambivalence. And that seems obvious, of course, in retrospect. But what I mean is, when people have a question or a problem, they don't want an open-ended answer that can be answered in many different ways. They really want a clear, concise, solid answer to their questions. This is why religion exists. And this is not an attack on religion, because over the last 10 years, I've developed twice as much of the respect for religions than I did. Because I suffered, like every single human being suffers, from Dunning-Kruger effect at one point in my life. And that was just a name given to the less you know about something, the more you think you know, and the wiser you think you are. Once you become an expert at something, as a carpenter, for example, once I learned how complicated some things were, I realized, wow, there's always a lot to learn. There are people who think they have it all figured out. And what you find is that really leads you down several different branches from that path. One, maybe it works out for you, and everything just goes your way. But there is always a point in our lives, most of us hit, where we have to question what we really know, and whether we're even as smart as we thought we were, whether we're as good as our job as we thought we were, or just kind of be humbled by the experience of being human and seeing other humans around you are in the same situation. People refer to authority and expertise, or at least did in the past. And this was a major component of what I wanted to talk about here, but I don't know if I'll really have the time or be able to focus on it long enough, because this is kind of a off-the-cuff discussion. But as I heard, it was a discussion Sam Harris was having with somebody a while back, and I don't remember what the guy said, but he said, we never notice the times when things are going right. We're always pointing at the little problems in the world. And this resonated with me. Because, for example, if I'm driving and we see an accident, and my passenger says, oh God, drivers are idiots, or not paying attention, that kind of thing. And I think, but there's a million other cars out here on the road that didn't crash. See, we're not hardwired to notice what's right. Everything's all right most of the time. something goes wrong, we have to point that out. And for me, that's harder because as a philosopher, and that sounds pretentious and arrogant, but philosopher is just lover of wisdom, lover of knowledge. That's all it is, the love of wisdom. And I'm always seeking to increase that. But it makes you question the long-term benefits of something that may appear to be horrible in the short run, if that makes sense. It would be how people misunderstand me when I say something about like, well, this place got destroyed, but it brought a change that we needed, or talking about the protests, or these kind of things. People get very sensitive. They have it set in their mind that there's a certain way to do things. And when we discuss these, we find out that people are more ambivalent than they let on. People do not really believe as solidly, I think, as they claim to, the things that they purport to believe. Now, this isn't always true. Some people are completely immersed in what they think is true, and that's that. But understanding your own shortcomings is something that I've learned is a very good benefit, especially with this channel and how much I've learned about myself through the lens of you all. You know, there are people who probably think that I live in an echo chamber on this channel, or that, oh, well, when you get all these props and good comments, it's not always that way. In fact, most of the rude comments I get are on older videos, but and then I look back at the video and I think, oh, wow, maybe I did make a claim in that video that, you know, somebody could have taken the wrong way. I've tried to have more tact over the years and not just, you know, annihilate other people's ideas. But that's because I know better, because I don't know better. That's the point. And so some of the lessons I've learned are basically too much knowledge can work against you. Dunning-Kruger effect does suck, you know, if you don't know enough. Then you learn a lot about something and you think you cannot unlearn the things that you've learned. So when I look at the travesties around the world and drought and, you know, endless problems, you know, child labor, all these discussions I wanted to have about the world's problems. And I so often wanted to make a video talking about these things. And I just don't make it, because I say, why add more negativity to what people already can see happening in front of their faces? And then I think about it again, and I think because so many people are fucking ignorant, and they aren't aware that the cocoa beans that they eat, you know, are from child labor, and that they're cutting down entire rainforests just to plant soybeans. Nobody cares. No soybeans just to feed cows, which the meat industry subsidized. It's a whole different subject I was going to talk about later, but everything around us makes us just go, oh my God, you know, this is too much. And so on my channel, I've always tried to talk about things in a way that opens a discussion, but that doesn't make any hard, solid truths. And I found that doesn't sell well. And to explain what I mean, for all the videos I've made, it's not like I put a lot into production, but that's not the point. There are plenty of people who can start a YouTube channel and within 2 years have 1 million subscribers if all you talk about is, I believe these are the greatest stereos, or this is the best band, or if you're dedicated to this politician, or just politics in general, or one religion. In other words, if you're just a person talking like I am, and you're not trying to press any beliefs on anyone or gather a group, it's harder to build it into something. So a lot of people, they find out that, well, I've talked about chemtrails and all of a sudden I got a lot of views. Oh, or I talked about Trump and I get a lot of views. So that's all they start talking about. I've been accused of that plenty of times, but I know it's not true because I don't use those keywords, and I only talk about things when they're on my mind, not when I want to get views. If I just wanted to get views, then I'd just talk about politics all day long and just spit a bunch of nonsense. And honestly, when I see those channels of those guys that do that, whether they be left or right leaning, it doesn't matter. Anybody who's focused just solely on politics, I feel bad for them. Because I know in the long run that just wears down your soul. They're not that important. The smaller issues are important, but I can't say that I'm really an authority on any particular subject. I consider myself a jack of all trades. But part of what I wanted to talk about here was the fact that we don't even trust the experts anymore. That we have moved into listening to people and their extreme beliefs and viewpoints, and it's very hard to remain neutral in a world like that. You want to speak your mind. This is, and I'm, I guess, justifying or explaining why I do sometimes tear into people, or I see a video that I know is total nonsense, and so I have to call it out. I'm just like, this is bullshit. Or a comment where somebody says something rude, and I'm like, I don't want to be that guy that's just looking like I'm arguing, but I don't say things just to argue. I say things to explain what I think is right or appropriate, or to say that nobody really knows, which is more often the case. A lot of people believe everyone's out to get them. I mean, this is the conspiracy mindset, which I fell into, when about 15 years ago, and carried on for several years, thinking about all the things our government had done, all the problems in the world, and the shadow organizations and how these things are caused. And what I've learned is that people, they always assume there's a conspiracy when it's usually nine times out of 10, if something happens that's crazy, it's incompetence or ignorance, not a planned event. The idea that humans are smart enough to orchestrate, hundreds of years of planned, society, it's difficult for people to grasp that we're on a ship with no captain. So we look for a captain. Back to the point about experts. And people at this point have given up on trusting the experts because they've been ridiculed so much. So, for example, with the president, a lot of people say that they wanted somebody in there that would be different, one of the people, one of the regular guys. And when I was listening to the Sam Harris podcast, he was talking about that. He said, it's, if I go to a doctor, I don't want to have just some guy I can have a beer with or somebody who's not experienced, If I go to the dentist, I don't want to have some random guy putting teeth in just because he's cool or he's nice or he reminds me of myself. And I definitely wouldn't want my kids being taught by somebody who wasn't educated themselves. So we kind of pick and choose which experts we want to listen to. And just like we don't see all the cars that don't crash, we don't see all the expertise and authority out there that actually accomplishes a lot. Somebody pointed out that, well, what have all these people done for us over the decades? And they said, well, we haven't had a nuclear war yet. That was the best answer that I thought he could come up with. It was the fact that we haven't destroyed ourselves is only because people are working around the clock to try to understand each other, understand the world, to look at the values of a particular thing, like the bomb, and say, wow, do we really want to do this? So, just to kind of tie that up with the conspiracy thing, I really didn't want to get into that, but the thing is, the reason I brought it up was because people don't like ambivalence. They don't like loose ends. They want to tie these things up neat and tidy, and there was always somebody out there that will tell you exactly what happened in any situation, why it happened, and what's going to happen next. And I don't believe in prophecy. I don't believe in psychics or palm readers or any of that shit. So my thought on it is that we're all here on this ship together. Not only do we not have a captain, but everybody's rowing in different directions. It's absurd, but it's what you would expect from a creature that just came into its own awareness within a short period of time and built these toys that it couldn't understand. So, teachers want to know stuff, right? And my idea is, if I can learn some basic things about life, I can share those with others. And I've found I don't like teaching about politics. I don't like teaching about religion. I don't like teaching anything that's unprovable or controversial, not because of the controversial sake, but because something is only controversial because there is no solid answer. So it's empowering, though, when I have an experience in my life, something that happens to me, usually in my mind or in my heart, or a revelation that I have. Those are the little gems that I want to share with other people, because others have taught me those same gems. Simple things from people like Alan Watts, talking about letting things go, forgiving your enemies, all these basic old Buddhist and Zen principles, which the only reason I think people don't take them seriously is not because they don't agree with them, but because it's hard. It's hard to live honestly. It's hard not to want to capitalize when you see money over in this place and you think, okay, I can make money, but it might affect somebody else negatively. It's just like going into a town and setting up a well and fracking and destroying the water supply because it's in the name of progress and there's a little bit of money to be made. Not that you really needed to do it. A lot of lives were affected negatively, but it's all in the name of progress. And so in today's world, we're kind of, I don't know, it feels like we're on our own. And I don't want people to feel like they're on their own. I got your back. For what it's worth, How much energy do we want to put into debating? Life is short. And that's why I'm changing my YouTube channel here. I'm going to do something different for the year 2021. And I'm going to start now by not making videos, just every time I have a thought. I mean, it's not that I don't want to share. It's that I set up the camera and half the time I don't make a video. And I've been asking myself why. And I realized it's because I feel insecure making a video over the past year or so, unless it's something that I think is valuable or worthy. And that kind of takes away from that natural Carpo After Dark shit I used to do, where I just talk about whatever's on my mind. And I feel like I'm not going to be pulled into that curated type video. But that's also, if I want to make a living off of this, let's say, which would be great because then I could do more research and have more time. In order to do that, I have to play society's game, and I just don't know how much I want to play that. So taking a little bit of time off YouTube, I would like to kind of rethink my strategy as far as what I want to do. Work on some of my projects. The book I was writing on pharmaceuticals and a whole bunch of other things that I've been working on. And, another thing to consider is YouTube has changed over the last 10 years. Well, it was the Wild West. Back in 2010 when I first started uploading videos, it was more interesting. I mean, you'd get random videos in your feed, not just a bunch of late night crap or whatever. And I know the algorithms are, ass backwards, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But really, a lot of the good stuff gets buried, and what's the point? What is good stuff? Who am I to say what is good stuff on YouTube? Sometimes I just like to watch people restore old tools, things like that. So, my point here, I used YouTube and I was hoping it would be a catalyst for new ideas. It has, at times, become a distraction for me. It's not that if I didn't do YouTube, I wouldn't have distractions. It would just be something else. But there's a part of me that feels like it's almost an addiction to a point. And when people talk about addiction, the definition is that it holds you back in life or it's preventing you from doing something else. For me, the addiction part would come from the fact that I have these other papers and projects I could work on if I was focused on one thing. And I'm scattered. And it's really hard to focus on one thing. I mean, I've got all these papers all around here of stuff I wanted to share, and I'm just like, meh. So, to finalize this, work on some self-growth here for myself, ask myself what I really want to do. I will still be uploading YouTube videos, so I'm not saying that I'm never going to make them. I'll take a week or two off sometimes, but I don't know how I'll feel tomorrow. That's honesty, right? And what I'd like to do in the meantime, and this is something I will be doing, I'm going to be uploading somewhat maybe daily podcasts to my Patreon page. Now I'm doing that because I can't upload my podcast to YouTube. It has to be in a video format, and I don't have the time to do the editing. I don't have a good computer, so I found if I just use this voice recorder that I have right here and record my thoughts, I can post it up on YouTube or on my Patreon page easily. It just uploads in a couple minutes. So to record my thoughts like that, I can do it when I'm walking around or whatnot. So if something comes into my mind and I want to share, and maybe I'll go through some of these old papers, because I seriously have like a binder this big of papers that I've been wanting to share and read, and I just haven't. And how do I organize that into something that actually helps me feed my family, or turns it into something where I feel like I'm actually making something, a completed, kind of a magnum opus. Maybe someday, I don't know. But so I'll be doing that. And I know that somebody will tell me that, oh, you just, why do you have to put it behind a paywall on Patreon? Not everything I put on Patreon is a subscription is needed. A lot of them you can click on. And at least one out of every few posts that I do, I make them accessible to anyone. So it's not about putting anything behind a paywall, but it's also why put in the effort and not be compensated. And then that's another point. You start questioning yourself, like, well, it's not about the money. And you're like, no, but if you don't have any, you're screwed. Well, what do I do? And what's right and what's wrong? And it's like, I don't know. I really don't know sometimes. I consider myself a stable person, a rational person, when it comes to my emotions and my intelligence, for what it's worth. Perhaps that's the Dunning-Kruger effect in effect, but back to the old expertise authority thing. If there's anything that I consider myself to be an authority on, it would be procrastination. That's for one. But really, what you live is what you know. And I'm not a one-trick pony where I just talk about this group, or I just talk about this thing, or this religion, or for example, like a channel I do watch, I can't remember what it's called, but Telltale, I think, he used to be a Jehovah's Witness, I believe, and he broke free, and so he started making videos to help other people who were coming out of that, but all of his videos, his whole channel is based on kind of exposing frauds within the religious community. Now, I don't know his personal thoughts on this, it just came to mind, but whenever I see that, I think it's unfortunate for him, because once he wants to get away from those thoughts, you either have to start something completely different, a new project, or continue talking about these things that stir up, your own emotions, if that's the situation. So let's say that you were a victim of something, or let's say you're sober and you stopped drinking, and you start a channel based on helping people be sober. It'll be wonderful, and then a few years later, you might be like, I'm sick of talking about this. And that's why I have my channel the way it is. That's why it's not curated. That's why it's rough copies. So when I upload a random video like this, you know what to expect. So hope everybody understands where I'm coming from here. And I don't know if I really made any points or anything at all, but I don't need to, I guess. Mostly this is just to inform people that I'm going to be taking a different approach and maybe not uploading as often, but that could go anyway. I'm going to collect my thoughts. I'm going to build the foundation of my temple, and I'm going to work with all the new knowledge that I've learned. Finish my papers, my books, and really start standing behind maybe the things that I do want to share with other people. It seems pointless sometimes, but sometimes people say it's just what they need to hear at the right time. And if that's the case, to be honest, I might get one email or one message a week where somebody says, hey man, I just want to let you know this video or these videos really helped me through, a hard time in my life. I've had one guy send me a really heartfelt email saying he was about to kill himself, a few years back, and he saw this video of mine, and I'm like, I don't know how true that is, the story, but dude, that would hit me in the heart. I was like, that's not my doing, it's just chance. But if I can give a positive affirmation to someone or anything at the right time, I'm all for it. It's free to be nice, But that's why when I talk about more controversial stuff, it's not because I want to. It's because I feel like we need to know about these things. It's kind of like child abuse. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it happens all the time. And nobody's going to speak up for the kids if we don't, right? So there's a lot of issues like that out there. And so I'm going to have to get my feet wet in a lot of it. And, sometimes I've been mistaken, on a lot of issues. And that's just what life's all about. It's a learning curve. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thanks to my subscribers, my patrons, those. I do my best to answer all messages, questions, and whatnot, but it sometimes takes a while. And I don't get all the messages that are, YouTube doesn't post all the comments I get, so I have to go back and fish through to see them. So, but I do my best, and I feel like, that's, people don't maybe realize what an effort that really takes, and that's why I need to kind of step back a little bit. So anyhow, I'm just rambling at this point, but hey, I've been rambling for 25 minutes, so what's new, right? Peace out, my friends. I'll talk to you later. Thanks for being there and for being you, because it's all you can be.